Okay, so we're all set. Ready to go? All right, we're on. Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm Derrick Pitts, Chief Astronomer at the Franklin Institute Science Museum, your cool astronomer with the October edition of Night Skies at Home. Welcome to our program. Night Skies at Home is our regular monthly program that we are doing as a home-based program in lieu of what we do at the Franklin Institute, or have been doing at the Franklin Institute for quite a number of years, Night Skies at the Observatory. Our Night Skies at the Observatory program is a program in which we invite you to come down and join us and make use of the Franklin Institute's astronomy assets. We have a great observatory. We have a rooftop deck where we can place a number of telescopes, and we have the second oldest planetarium in the United States. And we put all these things together along with programs and activities to help you become more familiar with the night sky so that you can learn more about the night sky and perhaps become a sky watcher yourself. So this program is something we're doing in place of that right now, as we still haven't started those programs again at the Franklin Institute of our regular monthly Night Skies at the Observatory. A lot of these activities you can do at home. Learning the night sky is not difficult at all, and you don't have to go that deep if you don't want to. You can go just as deep as you like. And this program is meant to give you some orientation to the night sky as according to what's available to be seen at this time of this year, what you can see in the evening sky without binoculars or a telescope, and lots of other information related to the night sky. We'll point to some online resources that you can make use of, that you can carry with you even out under the night sky, so that you too can enjoy a little bit of the peace and serenity that comes with looking out into the universe. So we're taking a few minutes here just to let our audience jump on board with us. We do this program every month on the first Thursday night of every month, and this way you're all set up for what's available to be seen in the evening sky for this month. And believe me, there's plenty out there for you to see this month of October. So welcome again, folks. This is Night Skies at Home. I'm Derrick Pitts, Chief Astronomer at the Franklin Institute Science Museum, your cool astronomer with the October version of Night Skies at Home. So there's so much happening in the skies these days, both objects you can see, I should say, the natural items you can see of astronomy in the night sky, and a number of artificial space happenings that you really need to be aware of because there's just so much going on. So let's get started with a lot of this stuff so we can get rolling on our program this evening. Remember, this is a program for beginners. It's a program for advanced amateurs. It's a program for everybody in between. It doesn't matter if you're a young sky observer or if you've been observing the sky for decades. This is still a great opportunity for you to pick up on some information that you can use to enjoy viewing the night sky. Anybody can do this, and this is meant to be done anywhere. I'm not going to send you out into the hinterlands. If you can get to a dark sky location, gee, that's great. But if you're going to do it right from home, from your backyard, whether you're in an urban location or a suburban location, this program has information you can use. You can go right out on your front steps, no matter where you live in the Delaware Valley, and you can pick up some great sky objects that you can see without any difficulty at all. If you're out someplace where the sky is dark, I'll have one or two tidbits for you as well, things you can pick up and see without too much difficulty that hopefully will expand your science content, your backpack of science knowledge about what's up there in the night sky. We're going to put all this stuff together with information, concepts you already know and understand about the sky, probably have been using for quite some time. We're going to give you a context in which you can put all that knowledge you already have, so it makes a good package of information that you can use to help you figure out your way around the sky. No equipment needed here, by the way. If you have binoculars, great. If you have a telescope, hey, that's cool too. But if you don't, no need to worry about that. This is all what you can see with the unaided eye, just looking up under either urban sky conditions or suburban sky conditions. Okay, so I have a question for you to begin with. That's about the mechanics of our solar system. It's really about the mechanics of the Earth-Sun system, but it's something that I think you already know, and it has to do with seasons. So here's my question. This month, we have coming up what's called a cross-quarter day. A cross-quarter day is the halfway point between the beginning of two seasons. So the past seasonal start was in September for autumn, the first day of fall. And coming up, we have the first day of winter coming up in December. Now, halfway between the two is that cross-quarter day. Now, ancient sky observers and folks in the agricultural business from centuries ago used to pay very close attention to these particular days because it helped them figure out how to plant crops, how to harvest crops, and break the year down into chunks that were easy to work with. But we have a very special cross-quarter day coming up this month. And my question to you is, what day this month will be that cross-quarter day? It's a special day that we all know already. It goes under another name, but you know what it is. I'm going to ask you to send me your guess, your comments, put it into our comments so that we'll see it over here, and we'll find out whether you know what this is. And I'll give the answer a little bit later in the program. But the question again is, what's the cross-quarter day that's coming up this month? It goes by another special name that we all know really well, and it's one of a set of 4 special cross-quarter days throughout the year that we all know. Okay, so throw your response in the chat. Speaking of that chat box, or the place where you can put your comments, we'd also love to have your astronomy questions, your astronomy and space exploration questions. Anything you have related to astronomy and space exploration, send us your question. We'll try to answer it for you here this evening. And we love your questions, so please send them. Don't hesitate to send us no matter what the question is. We'd still love to have it, and hopefully we'll be able to answer it this evening. If we don't get to it this evening, I'll be sure to pick up on it out of the chat and answer it in the next few days. So please send us your questions. We want to hear from you. I have another question for you. This one's a little less serious. Okay, you ready for this? My technical producer, Katie, who's on the back side here, and my studio producer right here, Linda. Say hi, Linda.
Hi, everybody.
They're both going to strangle me when I ask you this question, okay? You ready for this? It's a joke question. See if you can figure out the answer. Why do space rocks taste better than Earth rocks? Okay, you got it? Why do space rocks taste better than Earth rocks? Send me what you think the answer is. Put that in the comments section too, and we'll come back with a little bit of, we'll come back later with an answer, okay? Why do space rocks taste better than Earth rocks? All right, great. We'll talk about that a little bit later. All right, so what do we have going on in the skies? Well, all kinds of stuff. We're going to talk about the fall highlights, and that means the bright stars, the constellations, the planets, also the moon. We'll talk a little bit about the sun as well, just to put all this package together in sort of a continuous form running through the year. And here we are right now, almost at the middle of the fall season. So we'll put all that together. And we'll also talk a little bit about this new expansion in the exploration of space by civilian participants. Last month, we talked to Scott Poteet. Scott was the flight director for the Innovation 4 flight, the Inspiration 4 flight that took 4 civilian astronauts to space for a 3-day visit. That was quite the event. It went really, really successfully, and it was great to have Scott on as part of our program last month to give us a sort of sneak peek, a pre-flight sneak peek, if you will, into what the flight was going to be about, what it was going to be like for the astronauts to be aloft in space. And that mission was really successful, but there have been some subsequent plans coming up from that, or there are, I should say it this way, there are some additional space flights coming up this fall of civilian astronauts. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And I guess you could say it's Billionaires Year in Space. So that will be included in that with some very, very familiar people that you know all about. And don't forget, we want to take your questions about space exploration and about astronomy. So send us your questions. In fact, let's take a check and see if we have any questions at the moment. We'll go from there. Any questions?
Oh, yeah, we do. The first guess is Halloween.
The first guess is Halloween for the answer to the cross-quarter question. That could be right. Let's give some other folks a chance to jump in, and we'll come back and answer that. But that's a really good guess. I like that one. Okay, what else do we have, Linda?
Kathy says space rocks are saltier.
Kathy is saying maybe space rocks are saltier than Earth rocks, and that's the reason why they taste better. That's a good answer too, but not quite. Keep trying. We'll keep going.
Randine says because they are out of this world.
Randine, I like that one. Because they're out of this world. That's a great answer. Not the right one, but that's a great answer. So we'll keep going. We'll have some good ones here.
Oh, wait, Stephanie says because they come from the Milky Way.
Ooh, Stephanie, thank you. Because they come from the Milky Way. Yeah, wouldn't that be neat if Milky Way bars actually had some space dust in them?
Paula says because space rocks are far out.
Thank you very much for that one. Was that Paula?
Paula.
Paula said because they're far out. That's great, Paula. Thanks a lot. Okay, so also, if you're calling into, if you're part of our program from someplace else outside the Delaware Valley, let us know where you're seeing our program. We'd love to find out a little bit about the sky where you are. You might be able to tell us something about the sky where you live. You might think it's a little bit different from where you are from here. So let us know where you are. We'd love to find out about that too. Okay, great. Thanks very much. All right, we'll come back to some more questions later, but right now, let's do this. Let's talk about the sky phenomenon for this month. So sunrise, I got to tell you, one of my favorite things to observe about how the sky changes during the course of the year is to follow what happens with the sun. And here's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how sunrise and sunset times change. Now, we really don't pay much attention to this other than how it affects us in terms of how we get our day started. Now, we know during the course of the year, the amount of light in the morning changes, and we think of that in relation again to how we start our day. So for those of us that live in North America, the further north we go, as we get into this season, sunrise comes much later in the morning, so it's darker in the morning when we get up. If you normally get up at 6 o'clock, you could really see the variation because during summer, the sun rises at 5:30 in the morning. In the depth of winter, the sun rises almost at 7:30 in the morning. And so you can really see that variation, but we don't think of it in terms of the mechanics of the solar system and how things are actually working. Well, part of the reason why this is happening, why these changes take place, is because of the axial tilt of the Earth. You know, the Earth's rotational axis is tilted at 23.5 degrees away from vertical. And as the Earth goes around the sun during the course of the year, this changes the sunrise and sunset times. So it's really a function of the mechanics of how the Earth orbits the sun. If the Earth's rotational axis were vertical, we wouldn't have these changes, and that would change how we live on the planet. So if you really think deeply about it, it turns out that almost every aspect of our life on the planet is governed by the astronomical setup of the Earth in relation to the sun, the other planets in the solar system as well. So when you put all those factors together, we're really at the mercy of what the Earth and the sun are doing together. We can talk a little bit more about that later too. But right now, sunrise is coming at 7:04 a.m. For those of us at this latitude. Here in Philadelphia, we're at 40 degrees north. And the variation, you know, between say 45 degrees north and say 35 degrees north, not that big, you know, but you'll notice, of course, a few minutes difference. The closer we get to the equator, the less variation during the course of during the course of the year in the sunrise and sunset times. And the farther we get from the equator, the greater the variation in the sunrise and sunset times. That's also kind of fun to look into too. It helps us understand how we can have terms like the land of the midnight sun, if you will. If you think about that for a moment, you already know what that means, and you already know how that works. If you just put all these things into context, it'll come to you how all that works. Sunset is coming now at 6:32 p.m. My goodness. Just 60 days ago, sunset was coming at 8:32 in the evening, but now it seems like it's getting dark so much earlier. Well, the time at which this is happening now is going to begin to slow down, and we'll get to that earliest sunset coming up in early December, as that's when the earliest sunset is, and the latest sunrise will be coming not long after that. So we'll get to that later in the year, but right now, sunrise is at 7:04 in the morning, that's tomorrow morning, and 6:32 p.m. tomorrow evening. The moon today is a waxing fingernail crescent, so it's very, very thin. It rises tomorrow morning at 9:31 a.m., and it sets tomorrow evening at 8:03. Now, this is perfect for us coming up this weekend, no matter where you're observing, because this means that just after the sun sets on the western side of the sky, we'll be able to see this very, very thin crescent moon. The moon, by the way, today is only 2.6 days old. It's gone through 2.6 days of its 29.5-day cycle. So it's a very, very, very thin crescent. But visible in the evening sky tomorrow night. And on Saturday evening, the moon and Venus will be very close together. So if you can see where the moon is on Saturday night, just below the moon, you'll be able to see bright Venus glowing brilliantly over on the western side of the sky. So that's a great thing to look for on Saturday evening. You can certainly look for the moon tomorrow night. You'll be able to see the moon with Mars not too far away. Let me just see where I said it. Oh, yes, yes. For tomorrow night, Venus is to the left of the moon. Saturday, the moon's motion around the Earth will carry it just past Venus, and they'll look like they're pretty close together in the evening sky. So take a look for that. That'll be pretty cool, right? So that's good. Lots of other great stuff to see in the evening sky. I mentioned Venus already, but as it turns out, like I said, Venus and the moon are together on Saturday evening, but Saturn and Jupiter, the two largest planets of our solar system, are over in the southeastern portion of the sky just after sunset. So as the sun sets in the evening at 6:32, the sky will be dark enough by 7 p.m. You'll be able to see Venus without too much difficulty, and you'll also be able to catch the two largest planets of our solar system, Jupiter and Saturn, over in the southeast. Now, here's a really cool exercise for you to sort of do while you're taking a look at these three planets in the sky. Let's add the moon into that. So we have 4 astronomical objects. So let's just hope that the weather is good enough on Saturday evening that you actually can do this. So if you go take a step outside, here's how it works out. Of these 4 objects, the moon, of course, is the closest one to us, on average about 239,000 miles away. As it turns out on Saturday evening, or is it tomorrow evening? Just a second, I think it actually is. Yes, tomorrow evening, the moon will be at perigee, at its closest position to Earth for the month. Now, if you think back about how we talk about supermoons, when we have a full moon that's at perigee, we call that a supermoon. Well, we can do the same thing with the crescent. It doesn't seem as impressive though, but we have a name for that. We can make up a name for that, and that would be super crescent. Super crescent. So when the moon is at perigee, when it's in a crescent phase, we could call it a super crescent if you wanted to. So the moon is going to be the closest of the all 4 objects. Venus will be the next closest of these objects because Venus is not too far away from us. It's the next closest planet to the sun. But even if Venus is orbiting around on the opposite side of the sun, when it would be at its greatest distance from Earth, it's still not very far when you consider how far away Jupiter and Saturn are. Now, on average, Jupiter is 484 million miles away from Earth. Saturn is 885 million miles away from Earth, right? So let's just think about that. We have the moon at 239,000 miles away. We have Venus at as many as 120 million miles away, if it's at its greatest distance away from us. And then we have Jupiter at 484 million and Saturn at 885 million. So here's what I want you to do as you look at these objects in the night sky. Think about those distances and the vast gulf of space between each of these objects. There could be as many as 100 million miles between the moon and Venus, but then the gulf gets much bigger. 500 million miles between Earth and Jupiter, and another 500 million miles almost between Jupiter and Saturn. So in this way, you begin to see that the sky actually is in 3 dimensions. It has depth, Jupiter being the closest of the 2 of Jupiter and Saturn. And as you see them in the evening sky, Jupiter will be the brighter one and Saturn will be the dimmer one. Now, perhaps you can understand why it is that Saturn appears dimmer even though it's about the same size as Jupiter. It's twice as far away from Earth as Jupiter is. That's going to make it look much smaller. So think about that as you're observing these objects in the evening sky. If you have a pair of binoculars, wow, is this a great opportunity to make use of them? The moon's going to look gorgeous in binoculars. Venus, not so much. You'll be able to see its clear white light reflected from the sun, from the cloud top. So that's kind of cool. But you can also take a look at Jupiter and Saturn, and hopefully you'll be able to see the 4 brightest moons of Jupiter, and you might just be able to barely make out what looks like what Galileo began to see, some of the figure of the rings around Saturn. That's with a pair of binoculars. Don't forget, as I always say, if you have a small telescope that you got as a holiday gift, it's still a nice temperature out for you to take it out and make use of it. And these are the perfect targets for you to gain experience at using that telescope. These are the simplest objects you'll ever look for, and they are actually some of the most impressive you can see in a telescope. Take a neighbor out with you to take a look through your telescope, and they will be impressed as well. Okay, so that's what's out for there. We have some great constellations in the evening sky, and we're going to go take a look at those. And what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to share my screen so we can take a trip off into the night sky and see what constellations are available for us to take a look at this time of this year. So let's do that right now first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here. I'm going to share my screen. Just a moment. If you'll just bear with me for a moment. I'm going to switch over to here. Hopefully that'll come up in just a moment. And we're going to head right out here to one of my favorite apps that I like to use. And this one is called Stellarium-Web. You'll see up here in my browser bar the URL for this, stellarium-web.org. I'm going to get rid of the side menu by clicking right here. And now I have full sky, and hopefully you can see this as well. This is a star map, an interactive star map for your desktop that works really, really well. You can manipulate it in every way you might want to. You can change your direction of view. You can change the time of day, the year, any of those parameters that you want for when you're actually viewing. So you can see what the sky looks like from any location on Earth, any day across time. You can pick and choose as you wish. And you can even alter the speed with which the sky seems to slide past you. So right now, as I'm using the screen, as you can see it, hopefully you'll see my pointer right here, almost in the center of the screen, directly above the red letter indicator for north. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click and grab my screen here, rotate things around. And as I rotate around, you'll see I've come past east. And I'm coming around to south, which is the direction I recommend we all stand when we're viewing the sky. I recommend this direction because as we're standing looking out toward the south, objects appear to rise over in the east. That would be on our left. They pass overhead toward in the south and set over on our right, which is to the west. So if you're standing facing south, objects will rise in the east, pass overhead, and set in the west, and that's on your right. So you're now oriented toward how the sky works, and that's the best way to be. As you get used to this, you can then change your positions, and you'll still keep your orientation. You will have embedded that orientation into your brain so that you won't lose your way. I know often people think, there's so many stars, how do I find my way around? What's the way that I can do this without losing my way? And that's the first thing, is understand which directions are where. That's very simple for you to do. I mean, you already know this. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west. In your neighborhood, just look to the portion of your neighborhood where you see the sun in the morning. That's east. In your neighborhood, look to the direction where you see the sun in the evening at dinner time. That's west. Halfway between the two, that's south. Very simple. You can do this wherever you are. Just figure out where the sun's rising, put that on your left. Figure out where the sun sets, put that on your right. Hold your hands out halfway between the two, facing straight ahead. That's south. You're all set. Works anywhere in the world just fine. Okay, good for that. Fine. So now that you've got that orientation set up as you go out to look at the night sky, this program is now set for 9 minutes after 8 in the evening, which is exactly as we are right now for October the 7th. And all I did to get that was just click on the little gray box in the lower right corner, and that gives me the toolbar that I need to adjust the times. Now we're looking out in the sky, and you can see where Venus is over on the southwestern horizon, just about to set. And if we come back around to the south, you can see where Jupiter and Saturn are. You can see that Jupiter is the brighter of the two, as indicated by its larger size than Saturn. And so you can see where those two are without too much difficulty. So you're set for where the planets are without too much difficulty. But how about some of the bright stars that are available in the evening sky for us right now? One of the stars, the constellations, what we call the asterisms, the shapes we give the stars. What asterisms are dominating the sky right now? Well, we still have quite a good grip on the summer sky, actually. Right now, directly overhead is the perfect asterism of the summer sky, and that's the summer triangle. You can see on the map here, one bright star that would be directly overhead that's identified is Vega, V-E-G-A. That's right over here. You can see my cursor circling it right now, but you can also see the other three triangle point stars of the summer triangle. There's one over to the left from Vega, right up here. This one is called Deneb. Deneb is the bright star we see there. And if we come down to close off the triangle, that triangle looking like this now, that bottom star of the triangle right here is called Altair. Now, each of these stars is the brightest star of its constellation. For Vega, its constellation is Lyra the Harp. Lyra the Harp, and Vega is the brightest of that group. Of the stars that are part of the group that Deneb belongs to, Deneb is the brightest of the constellation Cygnus the Swan, one of the most prominent constellations in the evening sky because all of its stars are bright enough to easily see. Doesn't look very much like a swan, though, I got to tell you that. It really looks much more like a cross. It looks like a cross, and you can easily identify a cross or a plus sign in the sky. So that makes it simple. And Deneb stands at the top of the cross, at the top of the plus sign. Down at the bottom of that triangle is Altair, the brightest star in the constellation Aquila the Eagle. Now, Altair marks the head of the bird or the beak of the bird. I'm not sure I can see the eagle so well, so don't feel bad if you can't quite see what folks say the shape should look like. You can actually make up your own. The only thing you have to do really is just be able to recognize the bright stars, and that'll give you the triangle, and that's really all you need to get yourself started looking around the sky. So you can identify this triangle no matter where you are. If your light conditions are really bright at night, if you're in downtown Center City, you can still see these stars. And if you're out in the country someplace, you can identify these stars also really well. So those are three constellations you can see right there. The cool thing about this grouping, this summer triangle, is that it also shows you where the arms of our galaxy, the Milky Way, are stretched across the sky. From the northeastern portion of the sky coming down to the southwestern portion of the sky. If you're out someplace where the sky is clear and dark, you can see that without too much difficulty. So let's use some visual aids here to help fill in the blanks. I've been telling you about what this stuff looks like, but let's throw some constellation shapes up so you can see what they actually look like. And we've got the names here as well. That's a really great feature of this program. It makes it easy for you to be able to see this really well. So there's Cygnus right there, the giant plus sign or cross in the sky. Vega, right over here at Lyra, does not look like a harp at all. It looks like a tiny parallelogram, a rectangle whose sides have been shifted. You remember that from geometry class, the parallelogram. That's what this looks like right here. There it is at Vega. And then Aquila the Eagle down below at the bottom point of the triangle. That does not look like an eagle to me. It looks more like a cross or a plus sign with the arms flipped upwards. So that's kind of odd looking, but still you can see where we are. Now, if we want to move toward the stars that are going to become the main stars of the summer sky, of the fall sky, here's what I'm going to do for that. I'm going to advance our time 1 hour. So we're going to go from 8:14 p.m. to 9:14 p.m. And what you have seen happen with this jump is that those constellations that were directly overhead have now shifted a little bit to the west. And that brings these other constellations from the eastern side of the sky into a more prominent position. And it's important that we get them around there because there's a really great story that's happening over there. And I'm going to advance us 1 more hour up to 10:14 p.m. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because 2 of the main players, or three of the main players of the story, are now coming into a prominent position. And those 3 players are the great square of Pegasus that we can see right here just a little bit to the east of south. And this is a large square in the sky that has fairly bright stars at each of the corners. That's the figure to make out. The rest of it, it doesn't show up very well because the stars aren't so bright. But that's the first part. The second player in the story is Andromeda, which is attached to Pegasus through the one star at the upper left corner of the box. That star right there is called Alpha-Rats, and it connects Andromeda to Pegasus through that one star. The third player in the story is way up at the top of the sky here, just almost at the edge of our map, and it's Perseus. And the story goes like this. Andromeda was the daughter of the king and queen of Ethiopia. The king and queen of Ethiopia being Cassiopeia and Cepheus, two constellations that are further north in the northeastern portion of the sky. The stars of Cassiopeia are actually quite easy to recognize, and they look like a W or an inverted M shape. 7 bright stars make up that star grouping, and it's easy to recognize. Andromeda is their daughter, and of course, a princess. But as it turns out, the queen, Cassiopeia, is very vain. And she at one time said that she thought she was more beautiful than any of the gods or goddesses. Well, the gods and goddesses took umbrage at that, and what they did to punish her was they chained her daughter Andromeda to a rock by the sea of their kingdom, where Andromeda would be eaten by the horrible sea monster Cetus. Well, that's another constellation of the evening sky, Cetus, and you can see Cetus, the sea monster, just below Pegasus on the other side of Pisces, right here low on the eastern horizon. Well, it seems like Andromeda was doomed. The sea monster Cetus was on his way to grab Andromeda from the rock. And what the king and queen did was they appealed to a hero that happened to be flying by their kingdom at just the right moment. That king, of course, or that hero was the hero Perseus. Perseus was on his way back from doing another job for some of the other gods when he happened to be coming by this scene on the winged horse Pegasus. So there you can see the winged horse Pegasus that Perseus flew on to reach this portion of the kingdom where the king and queen, of course, are just torn apart about what might become the fate of their daughter. What they did was they made a deal with Perseus. They said, hey, look, if you rescue our daughter, we'll give you her hand in marriage. Of course, Perseus says, that sounds like a pretty good deal to me. I marry the queen, I marry the princess, get into the family, into the royal family, and I'll be set for life. And it just so happens I have the flying horse Perseus that's going to get me down there. But how is it that I am going to defeat the sea monster Cetus? Well, what Perseus does is he takes one of the items that he's brought back from his labors for the other gods that he happens to have in a burlap sack. What does he have? You ready for this? He has the head of the Medusa. Now remember, in Greek mythology, the Medusa is another monster that has snakes for hair, and if you gaze into the Medusa's eyes, you'll be turned to stone. Well, Perseus has figured out how to defeat the Medusa. He's got the Medusa's head, and what does he do? At just the right moment, when Cetus is coming up out of the water to attack Andromeda, Perseus pulls the head of the Medusa from the bag, holds it up in front of the monster, and Cetus turns to stone. And that destroys Cetus. The princess is saved, and Perseus gets to marry the princess and become part of the royal family. Now that's just part of the story that's tied up with those constellations: Pegasus, Andromeda, Perseus, Cepheus, Cassiopeia, and let's not forget the sea monster Cetus. There's a lot more to this story. And if you dig into it, you'll find out it's a story that's complete with every kind of drama you can possibly imagine. I'll give you a little hint. A fight breaks out at the wedding. How about that? Sounds like a lot of the other weddings we go to, doesn't it? Yeah, well, it happens in the sky as well. But these are all constellations that are part of the fall sky and make up the main constellations of the fall sky. All of them have stars bright enough for you to be able to easily recognize. And of course, for those of you that follow the zodiac constellations, you can see we also have available for us in this sky in the fall, Capricornus, which is where Jupiter and Saturn are located, Aquarius coming along just behind Capricornus, Pisces, the two fish in the sea, Aries, and we can continue on beginning the winter season with Taurus that's right over on the eastern horizon at 10 p.m. So there's quite a panoply of story to be told using the constellations and the asterisms, the shapes we give the stars that are in the fall sky. So there's a lot to be covered there and a lot for you to learn about. Now, if you happen to stay up a bit later at night, here's a really cool thing that happens. If you're up around 11 p.m., here's a really cool observation for you to make. Let's start right here at Pegasus. We called it the Great Square. You'll notice it's in a perfect position now, almost directly to the south, halfway overhead, a little bit higher than that. Well, let's take this corner star of Pegasus right here that we called Alpheratz that connects the Great Square with Andromeda. And we're going to step out along the stars of Andromeda, two stars, one star, two stars. And then we're going to go up from that line, one star, two star, toward the small circle that you see on the map. Now, the small circle that you see on the map actually belongs to a figure called M31, or the Andromeda Nebula. Now, let's correct that. It's not a nebula, it's a galaxy. And you can see the subline here says in the information box, spiral galaxy. That's right, M31 is the Andromeda Galaxy. M31 is a galaxy very much like our own, a spiral galaxy. And as a spiral galaxy, it's home to hundreds of millions, hundreds of billions of stars, I should say, and is arranged in a spiral shape, just like our galaxy is. In fact, two things about Andromeda is it's just about the same size as our galaxy, maybe a little bit bigger. And it is the most distant object that's observable with the human eye unaided. So you can see this under dark, clear skies, no binoculars, no telescope, and it's the most distant object you can see. How far away is it? 2.9 million light years away. The light you see tonight left that galaxy 2.9 million years ago. That's a very, very cool thing. And guess what? If you take a look at this, even with binoculars or a telescope, you're actually having a physical interaction with the stars of that galaxy from 3 million years ago. How so? Well, the photons of light that come to your eyes strike your retina. As they strike your retina, they create an electrical impulse that goes to your visual cortex in your brain. And you then have an image of what that galaxy looks like because of the photons striking your retina, creating that image. So you actually have a physical interaction with something that occurred 3 million years ago. And there's not very much opportunity for you to do that with almost anything else. But those photons come directly to you from that galaxy. They are your photons when you see them, and they belong to you forever because you've converted them into electrical impulses for your brain to convert into an image. Kind of cool, huh? Yeah, I always think that's a neat thing. That's a really cool galaxy to see. It's the easiest one for you to see in the evening sky. So I highly recommend you take the opportunity to do that. Okay, we're going to stop sharing our screen here now. We've had a chance to look around and see what some of the constellations are. We're going to take a moment to take some questions. So I hope you have some questions. So let's see what questions you have. And you know, the other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to lean out of the way so you can see the artwork in my background, because this is a great depiction of what a spiral galaxy looks like. Can you see that? You can see the core right at the center of the galaxy and the spiral arms out around the center. Isn't that cool? That's not a real picture, by the way. That's an artist's rendition, but that's what they look like, and they look really cool. Okay, great. All right, so let's see what questions we have. Linda, what do we have out there?
First, we have a shout out from Baltimore, Telemark in Norway,
Wow.
and Southern Georgia.
Wow. We have shout outs tonight from Baltimore, from Telemark in Norway. Wow. Howdy from Norway. Thanks for joining us. I'd love to come to Telemark sometime. I love that part of the world. It's really beautiful over there. But thanks for joining us. And from Southern Georgia as well. That's fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us. Okay, so for our friends over in Telemark, your skies are not too far different from ours. You're a little bit further north, so you have more of the northern sky and less of the southern sky. So I'm going to leave out the part about the constellations that are close to the southern horizon just for you. And you have those nice skies overhead that give a little bit more of the northern sky. We all ought to go to Telemark in Norway. You know why? We'll have better access to the northern lights. And I certainly hope that our viewers from Telemark have been able to get an opportunity to see the northern lights from where they are. So thanks for joining us. Our folks from Baltimore, our friends from South Georgia, we're glad to have you aboard. So thanks for joining us tonight. Get out and enjoy your night skies wherever you are. They're going to be gorgeous. What else do we have, Linda?
Paula said, thanks to you and your encouragement, she bought her grandson a telescope, not too expensive, several years ago. And he enjoys watching the moon, the sun, and the stars.
Aha, Paula bought her grandson a telescope, and he enjoys viewing the moon, the sun, and the stars. The moon, the planets, and the stars.
And the sun, yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Congratulations. That was a great thing to do, Paul. You've introduced him to a whole new world of stuff that he can get into. Oh, really, for the rest of his life. There's so much to be excited about looking at the night sky. And you get this really close up and personal connection to the universe doing it that way. What else do we have, Linda? Great job, Paula.
Jerry from Havertown said the ISS passed over about an hour ago, and it passed between Jupiter and Saturn, and it was very cool.
Wow, Jerry reporting on International Space Station, flying over Havertown, passed between Jupiter and Saturn. I think that pass tonight, Jerry, was at 7:04 p.m., so it was just before our program. And I'm guessing that your skies over there were better than our skies were over here because it was too cloudy for us to see over here. But that brings me to a really interesting point. Jerry speaking about International Space Station's visibility. As it turns out, tonight was a really great night for that pass because it was a very high pass and it worked out really well. There are two more passes coming up over the next couple of days. They're not as high as tonight's pass was, but those will be the last two evening passes for viewing in this area until October 19th. What's going to happen in that time period when we can't see International Space Station, it's not that it stops orbiting, it's just that it's happening during daylight hours, so we can't see it. But the shift is now going from a set of passes for the evening sky that have been happening over the last 10 days or so, 10 days about of not being able to see it. And then we'll begin on the 19th with pre-dawn sky passes. And there are a couple of really cool passes coming up in later October. On the 23rd of October and the 24th of October are two really excellent passes. Now, the pass on the 23rd happens at 6:26 a.m. Sounds like it's early, but it's not quite that early. And the one on the 24th comes at 5:38 a.m. Now, both of these are really cool. The first one on the 23rd traverses the entire sky. Very, very bright and a very good elevation. If the sky is clear, anybody and everybody should be able to see this without much problem at all, okay? Because it's high and it's bright. It's also going to pass not far from the moon. So that's a cool one to keep track of. And the other one that's happening on the 24th, the very next morning at 5:38 in the morning, here's the cool thing about that one. While it's going to pass some bright stars, you're not going to see it until it's about halfway through its pass across the sky. So for the first half of its traverse across the sky, it'll be invisible. You won't see it. Why? Because it's hanging out in the shadow of the Earth. So about halfway through its pass, it's suddenly going to pop into view and then be very bright as it completes its pass across the sky. You should see that. That's going to look really cool too. Yes, I know it's early in the morning, but you know what? It'll be kind of an adventure, especially if the sky is nice and clear. So I encourage you to think about those two views of International Space Station on October 23rd and October 24th. You're looking for information about these? Well, there are two really cool places to find the information. One is heavensabove.com. I'll show you that one right quick. I'm going to share my screen so you can see where that is. We'll go back over here. We'll share my screen. We're going to close this one out here, and we're going to go right over here to this program in here, heavensabove.com. Let me just get into where we are here by logging in. Okay, I did that the wrong way. Here we are. Don't steal my password, please. Thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to come right down the page here and go right down the list of satellites on heavens-above.com. I'm going to click on ISS right here. I'm going to close this add box because I don't need it. And what you see right now in front of you, hopefully, is you'll see today, tomorrow, and Saturday's passes. And you'll see I said that it was at 7:04 this evening. It was really 7:07, so I was off by a couple of minutes. But the next two passes, the highest point of altitude is 11 degrees for tomorrow and 19 degrees on Saturday. It'll be fairly bright, but the weather's not going to be great. But here's what I did. I skipped ahead by using these date directional arrows. I skipped ahead to the next viewing period. And here's what I have down here is the next viewing period. And what I do for this, using this program, is I scan right down to the highest altitude passes. This is how I sort them really quickly. I scan to the highest altitude passes. Then what I do is I check the brightness. So here I have a high altitude pass of 66 degrees. That's way up. And if I go back and look at the brightness in the column to the left, I see it's negative 3.8 magnitude. That means it's really bright, about as bright as Venus will be in the sky. And the date, October 23rd. I'll click on the date, and what I'll get is I'll get a map that shows me, like I said, I'll click on that. And if I were actually out on the web, I'd be able to see what that looks like. Oh, it's not going to give it to me, is it? Okay. It's going to take its time looking it up. Wouldn't you know that's the way it happens? I was going to show you the map so you could see what it looks like when the object appears just out of the shadow of the sky. But it looks like it's going to take a moment to get there. Ah, here we are. And this is the date. Well, how do I get this weird thing on my screen? I can't have that. So let's jump out of that. Okay, great. So if you go on this website and you dig up the map, you can see what the path looks like where it comes out of the shadow and heads across the sky. Very cool thing to see. I highly recommend you do that. Okay, let's quit the sharing here. Okay, that takes care of that. And so that's it for International Space Station. That's what you can see coming up. Now, speaking of International Space Station, was there another question, Linda?
Yeah, we have Diane from South Jersey.
Hi, Diane from South Jersey.
And Susan would like to know what is the best time to see the meteor showers and what do we look for?
Ah, Diane and Susan from South Jersey.
Well, Diane's from South Jersey.
Oh, hi, Diane. You're from South Jersey. Thanks for joining us. But Susan has a question about what's the best time to observe meteors.
We both have the same question.
Is that right?
Both.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So meteors. Meteors are cool to see in the sky. These are just little tiny grains of sand, space dust that are falling into the Earth's atmosphere. And often you'll hear people say that the best time to see a meteor shower is between midnight and sunrise, as the Earth is turning into the stream of meteors. And that's cool and everything. I can go with that. But sometimes doing observations between midnight and sunrise can be a challenge for us simply because of our life schedule. What I always recommend is as soon as the sky gets dark, go outside, give yourself a chance to adjust to the darkness of the sky, or however dark the sky is, and start looking for bright streaks. Now, on any clear night, the normal background rate for meteors, the regular number that you can typically see on any night, is 10 meteors per hour. That's the regular background rate. Sometimes you hear about meteor showers that are rated at 10 to 15 meteors per hour. It might be a shower, but I don't really encourage that because it doesn't look very much different from any normal night. So what you do is you pick the best showers of the year to observe when there are many more meteors per hour. There are two really great showers during the course of the year. One is in the summer and one is in the winter. The one in the summer is the Perseid meteor shower that always occurs on August the 12th every year. You can see anywhere from 90 to maybe 120 meteors per hour, depending on the intensity that particular year. In December, there's the Geminid meteor shower, and that's the other really intense shower. That one has at least 100 meteors per hour and has now surpassed the Perseid meteor shower as the most prolific shower of the year. So if you're looking for the best way to maximize your chances of seeing a good meteor shower, Wait for the Geminids to come up in December, right around December 14th. Find yourself a good dark sky location, grab a bunch of friends, dress warmly under clear skies, and go take a look for some of those meteors that seem to be coming from the constellation Gemini. Midnight to sunrise, if you can hang for that, great. But if you can't, as soon as the sky gets dark, go out and start to look for meteors, and I'm sure you'll come up with a few. So that's the best time to do that. What else do we have, Linda?
Cheryl says, thanks to your show, she was able to point out the ISS flyover and some constellations to her family at their camp retreat in the Poconos over the weekend.
Hey, Cheryl said she pointed out International Space Station and constellations to her family during a camping retreat this past weekend. So Cheryl, I hope what happened was your family now thinks that you are an absolutely brilliant genius because you knew all this stuff. Yeah, that's the way to play it. I highly recommend it. And here's a cool activity you can do with your neighbors, folks. If you can figure out when International Space Station is going to be visible, and it's a convenient time when you can bring your neighbors out to do this, keep the information to yourself, but call your neighbors and tell them you've got connections at NASA. And you thought it would be a great idea if you could show them International Space Station. They'll say, ha, you can't do that. And then, of course, you invite them to come outside at just the time when space station flies out over. You can point it out, and they'll think you're a genius too. So give it a shot. It's also a great way to win a bar bet. You can bet money that you can show this to somebody, and you can win some money that way. No, I'm just kidding. That's unethical, isn't it? Is it? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, these are ways in which you can get people to see International Space Station. But that was a great job, Cheryl. Sharing. That's a wonderful way to do astronomy, is to share it with family and friends. One more question, Linda?
Yeah, Robert says that he likes wildlife photographs, but he wants to get in the night sky photography. What do you suggest for a Nikon camera?
Okay, so Robin is very much interested in nature photography and is thinking about doing astrophotography as well. As it turns out, astrophotography is a bit easier to get started in these days, for the simple reason that the new digital cameras have the capability for you to adjust their shutter speeds and their ISO speeds and things like that, so that you can get great shots of the evening sky without a lot of elaborate equipment in a digital image. So what's a good camera? You know, the Canon line of cameras, I've seen a lot of people using for this. And in fact, any of those high-end cameras, like the Canons and the Nikons, will have the capability to do it. What I really suggest you do is that if you already have a camera, you should check it out to see if it has the capability for very, very high ISOs, so that you can grab the light that you need to create the astronomical images you need. And beyond that, there are a number of astrophotography tutorials online that will tell you exactly how to do this with the camera that you have. So I really recommend that you search up astrophotography tutorials and take a look at a bunch of those. I'll give you one astrophotographer I can think of right off the top of my head who's done a really fabulous job. Damian Peach. Damian Peach, just as it sounds, like the fruit, P-E-A-C-H. Damian Peach is a fantastic astrophotographer whose work might encourage you, and who also might be able to give you some pointers as to where to go for astrophotography tutorials. If you do that, send us some pictures. Let us know how it turns out. That'd be fabulous. Okay, Linda, one more.
Edna, is the Milky Way visible with binoculars?
Edna, hi Edna, thanks for joining us. She asks, is the Milky Way visible with binoculars? I got to tell you, Edna, about 410 years ago or so, when Galileo was looking at the night sky for the first time with a telescope, he used the telescope to look at the Milky Way, and he was able to begin to identify or discern individual stars. And this was his first inkling and understanding of how the sky is really set up, how space is really built and laid out. And he was one of the first people to actually look at the Milky Way with any kind of magnification. And he could see that there were hundreds. He could see hundreds of stars. His telescope didn't give him the capability to see many more. But with a pair of binoculars, Edna, oh my gosh, what you can do these days is really amazing. under dark sky locations with a pair of binoculars, you can see thousands upon thousands upon thousands of stars. And if you look in the right regions of the Milky Way, you'll stumble across all sorts of clusters, nebulae, star groupings, different color stars, all sorts of things, just with a pair of binoculars. So I highly recommend that one of the activities you engage in with a pair of binoculars and looking at the sky, set aside some time when you can go outside in a lounge chair, look up at the Milky Way with your binoculars, and just slowly scan along. Now, of course, I could direct you to, let's look for this. Let's look for M1. Let's look for M3. Let's look for M9. Let's look for all these different objects. But rather than have you look for specific objects, which you could do as an assignment, just scan along the Milky Way and see what you discover, see what you pick up. You'll be amazed at what you can find. So that's a good tip for everybody. You have a pair of binoculars? Take a look at the Milky Way. You'll be stunned. That's great. Okay, so let's go back and talk about a little bit about what's been happening these days in space exploration. Now, as I mentioned earlier, last month, Scott Poteet from the Inspiration 4 program joined us to give us a sneak preview of that upcoming civilian flight that occurred on September 15th. The astronauts flew from September 15th to September 14th, orbiting the Earth in a Crew Dragon capsule that was launched by a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. The mission was very successful. Everything went without a hitch according to plan. It was a great mission. But that's opened the door for a number of other things that are coming up soon. One of the next things that's coming up, or that's happened already as a result of that, is that a Russian film crew arrived at International Space Station yesterday with a director, an actor, and a cinematographer. What are they doing? They are filming sequences for a Russian production about a medical drama in space. So there's an actor, a director, and a cinematographer shooting scenes on board International Space Station for incorporation in what's going to be a feature film. And this is the first time this kind of thing has happened. It's a Russian group that's doing it, so they're working with the Russian astronauts on board International Space Station to put the scenes together and get that done. What's next after that? As I mentioned, a 4-person crew is headed to International Space Station. This is a NASA-sponsored flight, by the way. 4 astronauts are heading to International Space Station at the end of the month on October 30th, and they're headed up aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. It's going to be carrying the Crew Dragon capsule Endurance, and they're going to spend about 6 months in space doing experiments and otherwise building up our space experience for future near-Earth exploration. So that'll be, of course, a cool thing to watch. And, you know, I actually think this must be billionaires in space year. Why do I say that? Well, because most of the civilians that have gone to space in the last few months are all billionaires, right? So that includes Richard Branson, right? He launched on a mission aboard his space tourism space vehicle. Jeff Bezos in the Blue Origin system took a trip to space earlier this summer. Then we had the Inspiration 4 mission that happened in September. And coming up later this year, Japanese billionaire Yusaku Maezawa is going to arrive with a videographer for a short stay at International Space Station in December. So it's almost like it's billionaires year in space. Well, that just goes to show us that what has happened is that our ability to access low Earth orbit has really taken giant strides forward. Now, of course, only the super rich can do this right now, and those who happen to luck up into an opportunity to get into space, sponsored by a super rich person, perhaps. But I think over the next coming decades, those cost barriers are going to fall, and space will become much more easily accessible to the regular everyday person who might be interested in this kind of, what would we call this? Adventure tourism, if you will. Adventure tourism, going into space. It's almost like skydiving has become a popular thing to do. A lot of risk involved, but with a high degree of thrill. I think the space trip is going to become a similar kind of thing. But here's the one that tops them all. I don't know if you've heard this, but Star Trek's original Captain Kirk, Bill Shatner, heads to space next week. He's going on a Blue Origin flight no earlier than October 12th. That's next Tuesday. So by the end of next week, if everything goes according to plan, Captain Kirk, Bill Shatner, will have actually made it to space. And get this, he's 90 years old. If everything goes according to plan, he will become the oldest person to ever have traveled in space. So what we'll end up with this year so far is the oldest person to ever have traveled in space and the youngest person to ever have traveled in space will have occurred this year. Now, if that doesn't give an indication that this new horizon is opening, I don't know what does. So we'll just have to continue to follow along and see what happens in the next year for these sort of like new adventures happening in space. So that's the synopsis on what's happening there. But I can't get it. Captain Kirk is just about to go to space. What was that, Linda?
You'll meet them in Floston Paradise.
Yes, that's right. I don't know if you heard that, but Linda said we'll meet them at Floston Paradise. So those of you who know The Fifth Element will get the reference for that. By the way, one of my favorite space films, The Fifth Element. If you haven't seen it, please do. It's hilarious and a lot of fun. So enjoy that. All right. So Captain Kirk, Bill Shatner, he's going up on a Blue Origin flight. So this is the Jeff Bezos company. When Jeff Bezos went with his brother, I think his name was Mark, and a few other people went up on that flight. And so this is the flight that he's going to go up. It'll be Bill Shatner plus a few other officials from Blue Origin. But, you know, interestingly enough, in some of the news reports I've read, they haven't even mentioned the names of the other people going up. Has it become that blasé already? Or is it just that if you've got Bill Shatner on board, who needs to know about the other folks? I don't know which way it's going. I still think it's exciting. So I think we should hear about the other people as well. And I'm sure we will. So that's coming up next week. So look for that in the news. It should be really exciting. That mission, by the way, it's only a short flight. So, you know, Captain Kirk will only get into space for about 15 or 20 minutes. The Bezos flight, if I remember correctly, was all of 11 minutes from launch to landing. Not very much of an experience in space, but, you know, at least you cross the barrier and you can say you've done it. All right, that's cool. All right, great. So that's it for spaceflight. So Linda, we have other questions?
They want to know who is Captain Kirk.
No, really?
Some people don't know that.
Oh, I get it. Please excuse me. Some people are asking, wait, who's Captain Kirk? So from the Star Trek franchise, the original Star Trek series, which first aired in 1966, William Shatner was the actor who portrayed the original Captain James Tiberius Kirk in the original Star Trek series. So that's who William Shatner is. He appeared in a number of other television programs following that. Some were really great, some were not so great, but nonetheless, he's earned a place in Hollywood history for being the original Captain James T. Kirk. And of course, you can still see the series on television. It'll be in syndication forever. So if you haven't seen it, that's who it is. Or maybe I should have just said, get some older person to explain it to you. They'll tell you who Captain Kirk is. But in any case, they're going to space next week. What else, Linda?
Answers to the trivia questions.
Yes, thank you. Answers to the trivia questions. Okay, let's go back and just do the trivia questions. Thank you for keeping me straight on that. We have a cross-quarter day coming up this month. It's the day that's halfway between the first day of fall and the first day of winter. It has a very special name, but everybody knows what it is. You know what the day is? It's October 31st, and the name? Halloween. Yep, Halloween. If you guessed Halloween, you are absolutely right. And I know very early on in the program, we had an immediate answer to that, and I want to give a shout out to that person who came through with that answer so early on. Yes, it's Halloween. So there are 4 of these cross-quarter days, some of which you know very well. So there's Halloween, which is halfway between the first day of fall and the first day of winter. The cross-quarter day that's halfway between the first day of winter and the first day of spring, you know this one too. If I were to throw it out there and say, which one is it? You'd know which one it is. There was a movie made of it, about it. It's Groundhog Day. Yeah, that's right. February 2nd is the cross quarter day, halfway between the first day of spring and first day of winter and the first day of spring. What's the cross quarter day halfway between the first day of spring and the first day of summer? Yep, May Day. That's it. Everybody knows May Day, of course, right? And then there's another cross quarter day that comes halfway between the first day of summer and the first day of fall. Most people have never heard this one before. You know which one it is? Lammas. Lammas. You very rarely hear about this one.
Oh.
And part of the reason why you don't hear very much about it is because it has much stronger connections in the faith-based world from hundreds of years ago. It's really closer to planting and harvesting than a number of the other ones are, but that's the one that's halfway between, and it's in August, so we rarely hear about that one. Right at the end of July, beginning of August, so we rarely hear about that one. But those 4 days are cross-quarter days, halfway between the seasons, so that folks in the agricultural world from hundreds of years ago could keep better track about what's the best time for planting and harvesting and things like that. So that's pretty cool. All right, and the other trivia question, like I said, my producers will strangle me for this. Why do space rocks taste better than Earth rocks? We had a lot of really cool answers about this because they're associated with the Milky Way. Maybe they're a little saltier. What's the real answer? Space rocks taste better than Earth rocks because they're a little meteor. Get it? Meteor? Meteor? You know, like shooting star? Meteorite? Okay, no. It's just a joke. It's just a joke. What? You're saying I should keep my day job?
Yes.
Yeah, don't go for the humor. Okay, never mind. Anyway, there's a really bad astronomy joke you can share with your friends. Why do space rocks taste better than Earth rocks? They're a little meteor. Okay, there we go. So anyway. So coming up, so there's plenty of stuff for you to take a look for in the evening skies this month. Don't forget, as we mentioned, we talked about Jupiter, Saturn, Venus, and the moon. Saturday night is your evening to get out and look for the 4 of them. No binoculars needed. Take some friends out to get a good view of that. We're going to skip International Space Station until around the 19th of the month, when on the 23rd and 24th, we have 2 great opportunities to look for International Space Station, but they're both in the pre-dawn sky. I still recommend you give them a shot for that. And these really great constellations that are hanging around in the sky right now, we can see 2 seasons of constellations really, really well. We still have the summer constellations early in the evening, as I mentioned, with the summer triangle connecting those 3 main constellations of the sky, with the opportunity to find out where the Milky Way is, because the Milky Way runs right through the middle of the summer triangle. And we have that whole group of constellations from the early fall sky, in which we included Pegasus, Andromeda, Perseus, Cetus, Cassiopeia, and Cepheus, with that whole story about the rescuing of the princess from the monster and the wedding and the fights and all that sort of stuff. All kinds of great stories in the evening sky. So these are great opportunities for you to learn the night sky, because it's so easy for you to do, doesn't really take much at all. As I said, don't forget that thin fingernail crescent moon. That looks really great. So I just want to remind you that the Franklin Institute is open nowadays. We're open Wednesday through Sunday. And of course, we're always excited to offer our iconic Franklin Institute exhibit experiences, like the giant walk-through heart, the brain exhibit, the train factory, our sport exhibit, and let's not forget the fabulous Fells Planetarium. And along with our daily science experiments, our live science demonstrations, this month we're also featuring our October special spooky events, Franklin Fright Weekends. Every weekend this month, we have these really, really great activities that are all organized around Halloween and the theme of Halloweens. But extra special is our adult evening program for October, the Science After Hours program, Fright at Night. That's on October 21st, and you can't miss this mischief and magic that's highlighted with shocking, gross, and sticky science. This is an adults-only program, ages 21 and up. And these programs are really, really popular. So you need to get tickets early for this. You can buy your tickets online if you go to the Franklin Institute's website, www.fi.edu. You can find out all about our Franklin Fright weekends, which are for the whole family. It's almost like doing trick or treat in a science museum on every weekend this month. So get out and do that. And don't forget the Science After Hours Fright at Night. All the tickets are available online for that. And don't forget, Harry Potter, the exhibition, is coming in early 2022. You know, I've got to say that you may not realize it, but this happens to be a great time to visit the Franklin Institute. Why? Because, as it turns out, because of the way people are visiting museums these days, the Franklin Institute has lots of capacity for you to come and spend time visiting all the exhibits. Especially if you can come during the week, it's a great time to visit. So while we have all these great exhibits that you're familiar with already, we have all the special exhibits too, but take advantage of the fact that not as many people are out as could be. So you can come and enjoy the museum right now. It's a great time to come visit. So come check us out. You can also follow our other Franklin at Home programs at the Franklin Institute's website, and you can follow me on Twitter. My handle is @CoolAstronomer, and I'll be giving regular updates through the month for what's happening astronomically and in space exploration. Thanks for joining us tonight. We hope to see you again next month after you've had a chance to check out all these really cool astronomical and space exploration things that are happening this month. And we'll go back and talk about them again next month, and we'll bring some new stuff to you next month. In fact, we'll have a really special event for next month that I hope you'll all tune in for. Remember, we're on the first Thursday night of every month. Night skies at home. Thanks for joining us, folks. And don't forget, come visit us at the Franklin Institute. Enjoy the rest of October and enjoy the night skies. Remember, the sky is for everybody, you included, no matter where you're observing from. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next month, folks. Take it easy. I'm Derrick Pitts, Chief Astronomer at the Franklin Institute, your cool astronomer, with our October edition of Night Skies at Home. So long. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.